Google just updated its documentation on how to move a site. I went through it. Overall, it's a very good document. So let's walk through it together, and I have some comments here and there. So when we talk about moving a website or a website migration, there are different types. For example, from HTTP to HTTPS, or domain changes from example.com to example.net. Obviously, it doesn't have to be example. So maybe example.com to abc.com or .net or whatever. Sometimes it's actually merging multiple domains into one domain. And then sometimes it's a CMS change. So let's say you're moving from WordPress to Shopify or vice versa. The URL structure can be different. So there are different URL paths. So these are different types of migrations that have small differences here and there. Okay. So first of all, let's talk about generic website best practices when you're doing a migration. First of all, it's better if you have a large website. It's better if you move it in stages. I've tried that before, and I think this is the safest path to make sure that the process you set up and your work with the dev team is correct, right? Because maybe you're communicating, maybe they misunderstood something, a small detail got missed. So let's start with a small website section that doesn't have a lot of traffic, right? So this is the best place to start. If it's a large website, if it's a small website, then, get it done. Then change only one thing at a time. Don't do everything together. So sometimes this is a website migration and from, for example, a domain to another domain, and then it's also a redesign and a lot of things going on there, right? So how about we change the domain, make sure everything is stable, and then start on the redesign, right? And then once you do a migration, there is going to be a temporary fluctuation in site performance and search. It's expected. It's going to take maybe 2 weeks to start recovery, depending on the website size and the changes you made, right? If they're simple or it's a CMS change, things will definitely have a different outcome. And don't worry about link credit. 301 redirects and other permanent redirects don't cause loss in page rank. This is a good point, however. I have a small tip here. So if you're doing a website migration and obviously you're redirecting all your backlinks as well, right? So you're preserving the page rank, that's great. However, once you do the migration, all your links will not have your brand name, right? All your backlinks will not be pointing your new brand name. So what you want to do is you want to run a PR campaign or a fresh link building campaign to get links and brand mentions on your new brand name and your new domain. I wouldn't say it's an urgent thing, but I think it's a good idea to get some links on this new domain and new brand name. And then obviously make sure of Search Console and give it time, be patient. I think the most challenging part here is managing stakeholder expectations. They think it's like switch on, off, and on again, and it's working. It's not like that, right? Then, and you know what? If your website is a small website that's not getting a lot of traffic to begin with, even this small amount of traffic may not be moved directly to the new domain. There's a lot of moving parts in migrations, and you need to understand this and have patience. Okay, so you're moving to a new website. If it's just a domain change, it's pretty simple, and we're going to address that in a bit. And this is actually the part where Google made an update in this documentation. But if you're moving to a new website, a new CMS, right? So you set up the CMS. If it can be the same, it can be WordPress as well, different theme. It can be Shopify from WordPress and so on. So you need to set up your CMS, move all your images and downloads and your content, right? Move everything there and get it set up for HTTPS, have your TLS certificate on your server, set up your robots.txt, set up your sitemap. Also, a lot of times when you're moving from one website to the other, new CMS or whatever, sometimes there are URLs that you don't want to move, right? And you can either redirect them to the most relevant page, or you just want to make sure that they're returning a 404 or 410 error response on the new website. This is acceptable. Here's the thing. I have seen that if your website gets a lot of 404s suddenly, this is going to impact its performance in SERP. So I don't recommend getting a lot of leading 404s like this. I know Google's saying this here, but in practice, it does show that your website is not stable. And obviously, Google want to make sure that if they're crawling your website and giving you a spotted search, that you are a reliable website. So I I mean, if it's two, three, four, like if it's a small amount of links, that's okay. But if we're talking about thousands of URLs that you don't want anymore, then you need to handle them in the proper way with 301. And sometimes you may want to handle them before the migration altogether. If there are pages you don't want, maybe you should handle this, remove them, do the redirects, and clean them up before starting the migration, right? So something to keep in mind. And then again, make sure you have Search Console set up, the verification, configuration settings, all these things, and then use web analytics if you want to have GA4 there, whatever you want to do. If you want to use other platforms, that's okay as well. And then URL mapping, obviously, if it's just the domain that's changing, literally just from example.com to abc.com, this is the simplest thing. You will not even need the URL mapping. It's just a simple step that you need to do correctly. And that's the part where you need to use the URL change tool, or the domain change tool actually. But let's cross that bridge when we get there. Anyway, so if you're making more than just a domain change, you'll need to have a URL mapping, right? So get a list of your old URLs. You can get these from Sitemap. You can get them from Search Console. Any URL that got an impression, right? And sometimes you'll need to know how to get those URLs because sometimes you'll be asked, they'll bring you in halfway through a migration or after a migration is done and it's broken. And you want to make sure, hey guys, did you set up the redirects correctly? And they say yes, but that may not be the case. So you need to know the original set of URLs and they don't have it. So you need to find ways to bring this. So sitemaps, Search Console, right? And then, so get the URLs, and obviously you need to prioritize the important URLs. Not all pages are created equal. So pages with high traffic, obviously, you need to take care of those first, right? And then list the mapping, like where are each URL is going to go. So you want to make sure that each URL has its corresponding new URL, right? Create this. This is the data you're going to use to create the redirects, right? And then there's a few things as well. Check your server logs for URLs that were visited at least once recently. That's one place you can also get your list of URLs. And that's why server log files are important. And also when you're doing this redirect, include images, include videos, all the content on your website still need to be included in your plans. JavaScript, CSS, all URLs need to be moved the same way as all other content on your website. And then you create the mapping, and first step after you create the mapping, update annotations to point to the URL in the HTML or sitemap. And then make sure you have your self-referential canonical. If the website is multilingual, make sure you have the proper rel hreflang tag. Internal links as well. When you're copying your content, you want to make sure that you update the internal links. Obviously, this gets very complex if we're talking about a gigantic website. And, create a sitemap, as I mentioned earlier. And one of the things people do actually is when you're doing this migration, you resubmit your old sitemap. So Google start crawling the URLs again and then picks up on the redirects that you implemented, right? So sort of speeds things up, right? So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really cool details I recommend you read. And then the part I want to get to, which is the change of address tool. So if it's a domain change, so example.com to abc.com, you want to use Google's change of address tool. It's a tool where it tells you, okay, this domain, where is it going? And then you say that's the new domain, right? And you see a message in Search Console saying, hey, this domain is moving to that domain once you use that tool. But here's the thing. Most people use this tool with the canonical URL. No, you need also to use it with subdomains. You need to use it with the www and non-www variants. and so on. Like you need to use it with all your old website variants and make that change, okay? And generally, you should keep the redirects as long as possible once you set up your redirects, at least a year. And then you obviously need to submit the new sitemap in Search Console. And there's a lot of other recommendations here that you can go through. I really recommend that. I think we covered a lot of the core work that you need to do. I hope you found this useful and see you next video.